The brachial plexus is formed by cervical spinal nerve and thoracic spinal nerve. So cervical spinal nerve number 6, 7, 8 as well as thoracic spinal nerve number 1 and 2, the ventral branches, they would come together to form the plexus of the nerves, and then the nerves would come out from that plexus to supply the blood, supply the muscles in the forelimb. So when we look at those ones, we can differentiate some of these nerves as they come off the brachial plexus and distribute into the forelimb and supply different muscle groups as well as different individual muscles. So let's start looking at the nerves. So we have, these are all the different ventral branches coming off different nerves. They form that aggregate right here, and then they split from each other. So let's start from the suprascapular, which usually goes between the supraspinatus muscle and the subscapular muscle. At the same time, you will find the suprascapular artery and vein are also accompanied by the suprascapular nerve. Both of them as well go in between supraspinatus and subscapular to reach on the lateral side to supply both supraspinatus muscle as well as infraspinatus muscle. After this, you have the subscapular nerve, which goes into the subscapularis muscle. It might as well divide into a couple of branches, at least 3 or 4 branches, to get distributed over the muscle. So all of those which are going into the subscapularis are subscapular nerve, or either branches of the subscapular nerve. You can simply call them subscapular nerve. Okay. Then as we go backward, the nerve which goes between the subscapular and the teres major, the nerve which is diving between these two, that is the axillary nerve. So let's clean that area a little bit more, and we can see both of the, like, all the divisions of the axillary nerve. So more proximal part, the main axillary nerve, and it also has some branches going to the teres major, because it has major innervation done to the teres major, teres minor, as well as the deltoideus muscle on the lateral side, and also takes care of cutaneous innervation on the craniolateral aspect, the brachium and antebrachium. Let's come back to the brachial plexus. So this is axillary nerve. Then right after that, we have a nerve which is going backward towards the latissimus dorsi. So that is your thoracodorsal nerve, which is also accompanied by thoracodorsal artery and vein. So that's your thoracodorsal nerve. So far we looked into suprascapular, subscapular, axillary, and thoracodorsal. Now let's move further downward into the brachium, and we see the divisions of the brachial plexus as they are coming off to the different muscles, which also innervates the distal forelimb. One important thing to notice here, from the brachial plexus we do have the pectoral nerves coming off, and those would supply the pectoral muscles as well. So the pectoral nerves are basically derived from the brachial plexus, and also the cutaneous innervation in that region would be also derived by branches from the brachial plexus. But actually, we're at this point we're looking at the major nerves which are coming off. The pectoral nerves, they might have all like broken off, because as we cleaned up this area, usually they would be small or like much thinner. So many of them would be gone at this point. So we can see some of them going into the muscle, but we cannot really track them back to their origin from the brachial plexus. Okay. Okay, so here we have cleaned up this area a little bit to expose the blood vessels and nerves on the medial aspect of the arm. So we have shoulder, arm, forearm, and the manus. So we are now looking at the medial aspect of arm, the cranial surface, the caudal surface, medial surface, and the lateral surface. So here we see the brachial artery, brachial vein, and along with that we have few nerves that can be seen very easily. Let's start from cranial and we'll move back to the caudal end. So we have the biceps brachii muscle. Right on the caudal edge of the biceps brachii, we'll see a nerve running ventrally, that is your musculocutaneous nerve, which is also derived from the brachial plexus. The musculocutaneous nerve has its proximal branch given off at this point, taking care of the biceps brachii. As the musculocutaneous descends further down, it then gives off the distal muscular branch close to the right above the cubital joint, and later it becomes more cutaneous in nature. So this nerve later would be taking care of the cutaneous innervation rather supplying to any of the muscles. Here The musculocutaneous would be responsible for coracobrachialis, bíceps brachii, and brachialis muscle. Those are innervated by your musculocutaneous nerve. Now, the one which is on the caudal aspect of the brachial artery. Now, there are actually two nerves which are running together for a certain distance, and then they would separate from each other. So, we have the median and ulnar together, and they would split from each other after little distance. So here, this is branch of the ulnar nerve, which is going further backward, and then it will be taking care of more cutaneous innervation here, while the major division of the ulnar nerve is going further close to the olecranon underneath your superficial digital flexor as well as flexor carpi ulnaris. It then goes on the caudal surface of the antebrachium, but not really superficial, it is located deeper. Okay, so let's come back to that point where both of them they separate from each other. So here we have the median nerve, which will further continue into the cranial aspect but deep into the antebrachium. Well, that is your ulnar nerve, which is going further backward on the caudal aspect of the antebrachium, going deeper between your superficial digital flexor and flexor carpi ulnaris different heads. So we can trace the ulnar nerve right here underneath these. So this is your ulnar nerve going further down. The ulnar nerve and median nerve, both of them together are responsible for nerve supply to all the flexors of the carpus as well as digit. So your flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, deep digital flexor, superficial digital flexor, all these muscles would be innervated by the median and ulnar nerve. The ulnar nerve would also play some role in like cutaneous innervation, while the median would be again involved in palmar surface of the paw as well. Okay, so let's come back to the brachium again. So next one that we're going to see is the radial nerve. So the thickest of all, and even like more important of all as well, the radial nerve is the largest nerve that can be seen coming up the brachial plexus, which dives between the medial head of the triceps and the long head of the triceps. At this point, nerve goes in between them, supply all the extensors of the cubital joint, meaning all the three heads of the triceps. Then it courses laterally, it wraps around the humerus, and it will reappear right below the lateral head of the triceps. Okay, so here what we have the radial nerve going between the medial and long head of the triceps. The radial nerve, it goes on the lateral aspect, then it will reappear right below the lateral head of the triceps, and we can see the further continuation of the radial nerve right here on the lateral surface of the brachialis muscle. As it continues further down, it will provide innervation to all the extensors of the carpus and digits, including your ulnaris lateralis muscle. Though it is not an extensor of the digit, but still it is also innervated by the radial nerve. So the deep branches of the radial nerve, they would be all involved in nerve supply to the extensors, while the superficial branch of the radial nerve, it would continue further on the dorsal aspect of the antebrachium and further divide, and it will take care of the almost all dorsal aspect of the paw as well, except the lateral digit. So that is the radial nerve, that is the largest one out of all, and we see the course of the radial nerve, which comes more on the lateral side and located on the brachialis muscle, in between the brachialis and the lateral head of the triceps. Okay, so let's go back to inner side again, like the medial aspect again. So what we see here, let's follow the median nerve a little bit distally, as well as we can follow the ulnar nerve as well a little bit more distally. So we have the musculocutaneous, we have the median and ulnar together. The median would split from that, and later it will accompany the median artery and median vein. So this is further continuation of the median nerve. It keeps on giving up those twigs for the corresponding muscles like flexors of the digit and carpus, and it will continue further down following, or it will go along the median artery. So here we see the injection is pretty well in the median artery, but the median vein does not really appear very good as we move more distal, but then the median nerve should actually follow the median artery as long as it goes into the palmar aspect of the paw or palmar aspect of the man's. Okay, the ulnar nerve, as it further goes back towards the olecranon, more located on the medial side. Then it goes between your flexor muscles, and here we can see ulnar nerve accompanied by the ulnar vessels like ulnar artery and ulnar vein. Here we have transected the ulnar head of the flexor carpi ulnaris, and so we can expose the ulnar nerve on the caudal surface of the deep digital flexor. Okay, so this is your superficial digital flexor, flexor carpi ulnaris, humeral head, flexor carpi ulnaris. That is your ulnar head, and that is your ulnaris lateralis. And so that is the groove which accommodates the ulnar nerve, which is also called ulnar groove. Okay, so that's regarding the major nerves that are coming off the brachial plexus. So let's point them out one more time. Okay, so we have suprascapular with suprascapular artery and vein. Then we have subscapular. We have axillary nerve, which will also go on the lateral side. Then we have thoracodorsal nerve. Then we have median and ulnar together. Ulnar would split, go on the backs on the caudal surface of the antebrachium, while median would go in the cranial aspect but deep into the antebrachium. The musculocutaneous has its proximal muscular branch, which can be seen right here, and the distal muscular branch, which can be seen as it moves more distally. So this is the further continuation where it becomes cutaneous in nature, and that is the distal muscular branch of the musculocutaneous nerve.